All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started here. I think we got about another minute before the official kickoff, so we'll start right on time, and we'll just wait for everybody to get into the meeting. All right, I think we're 11 o'clock Central, right on the nose. So we'll get started here. This will just be a brief presentation on our on our PinPoint 3 product, but this is in relation to our summer promo, which we kicked off at the 1st of July, and we'll continue that through the end of September. So I guess I would say the first thing is make sure you get in contact with your local capstan ag reps and check on that summer promo. It's also listed on our website. It's a really attractive deal for early buyers who'd like to get into a PinPoint 3 system. And the purpose of this call today is we're just going to kick off. We're going to talk a little bit about the feature benefits of the PinPoint 3 platform. We're going to talk about what makes it different from a lot of the other systems that are in the market. We've got some ROI that will walk you through from all the way from a low-end system, small number of acres per year, to a high-end system, high number of acres per year. And we'll talk about what that payback and benefit would be. So this is the Why PinPoint 3 session, and we're going to host these every 2 weeks on Thursday. And the next one should be a pretty exciting one. We've got 4 of our technical guys who are all going to be together, and they're going to do a installation and setup Q&A. So this meeting will be a live Q&A session where you can dial in. They'll be set up as a panel. We'll take live questions, and they'll Q&A anything you want to do with that, along with some material we thought about ahead of time. And we'll go in the next couple of weeks, talk about our system design and how to choose a kit. And after that, we'll talk about upgrading legacy systems in the field. So trade-in options, compatibility tips, different things like that. So we'll have a final one on September 11th. We haven't set the topic of that. As we get through these webinar series and get some feedback, we'll determine what seems most appropriate to the audience, and we'll customize that one for what everybody wants to hear. So thanks to everybody for joining. I hope we get to learn a little bit about PinPoint 3 today, and make sure that you tune in for some of these other sessions, which I think are going to be, really good learning sessions as well. So the first thing we'll pop into is just PWM nozzle control benefits. And some of these apply to all PWM systems. Some of these are specific to the PinPoint platform. And most of these are, pretty well known if you've been running a PWM system or been familiar with them. Some of these, if you're coming in a conventional sprayer or not familiar with PWM nozzle control, these may be new to you. So I'm just going to go through them bullet point by bullet point. A few of these we're going to elaborate on down further in the slides. So the first one is constant droplet size. We know from years of experience, this is one of the most important benefits of PWM systems. The ability to set a constant pressure, to always have that pressure. We know that when we're at our target pressure, we're putting the droplet size out of the boom we want. And we know that that does things like mitigate drift, gives us constant droplet velocity, which gives us consistent coverage, consistent chemical efficacy. And so the constant droplet size is why PWM nozzle control systems were invented in the first place. So it's probably the most important feature of it. Another benefit that we get is we get a really large speed range. So with a conventional sprayer, you're going to have that 2-to-1 speed turn down ratio. Or, if you have a nozzle on there, let's say you got a 04 nozzle that you spray 10 gallons per acre with, you're going to get about an 8 to 12 mile an hour speed range out of that nozzle before your pressure's too high or too low. With a PWM system, we're really going to expand that speed control range. So we'll use a little bit larger nozzle, and you might get a speed control from, a low of 4 miles an hour up to a high of 20 or 25 miles an hour. So we get that constant droplet size, but we also get it over a really, really large speed window, which means you can drive your sprayer sort of to the conditions of the field and not the conditions of your tip. If your tip's the limiting factor, you drive your sprayer to the tip. We say you get minimal off-target application with your PinPoint system, and that's because we have overlap, which allows us to compensate the flow across the boom as we go through a turn. That's intuitive, how that helps with coverage, with chemical efficacy, with weed kill. We have overlap control, individual nozzle shutoff, which allows us to not overspray and have chemical buildup in areas which cause crop damage. And obviously the off-target application of drift, which we talked about in the constant droplet size. So these three right here are really big reasons to buy a PWM system, and they really help you maximize the benefit of the sprayer on your farm. These last ones right here are a little bit about how we can justify an ROI on these systems, which we'll get into the ROI slide a little bit later. And the first one is instantaneous rate adjustment. And this is one of those features that's exclusive to the PinPoint 3 platform. And that is, as you change speeds through the field, it pulses at 10 times per second. It's going to update that flow rate every 10th of a second to make sure that you're always on your exact target rate. And it does this with a technology we call sensor fusion technology, where we have several control loops on the machine. One of them is the traditional one that you're used to, a flow meter, which measures the flow and then tells a controller what's being applied, and it adjusts the pump. We add the additional layer of the pressure sensor and the pump control, and we can also use that pressure sensor to calculate the flow coming through the boom. So we have a flow meter measuring the flow, we have a pressure sensor calculating the flow. We can combine those two measurements together to get instantaneous rate adjustments and really, really accurate rate adjustments. So this is a major feature of the PinPoint system. And this applies to if you're doing variable rate or if you're doing a lot of rapid speed changes. Really big feature, really nice rate control within the system. The chemical savings from overlap control is very intuitive. When you break a boom from sections into individual nozzle, you're going to get a lot of reduction in chemical usage. And we'll look at some specifics of that. One that is very little thought about is sprayer efficiency. So on a conventional sprayer, one of the things that you're limited to is your top end speed is limited by your nozzle selection. So you do your nozzle selection based off of your average field conditions. And what that means is that if you have really nice fields where you could run a little bit faster or gain some efficiency, you have to slow down because you're limited on your top end by your tip. With the PWM systems, we're not going to see that. So on average, we're going to see our overall speed pickup, which means we're going to cover more acres in an hour. Another not very well thought of sprayer efficiency is trimming out waterways. Trimming out waterways is a tremendous effort and a tremendous time loss when you're applying a field. And with the PinPoint system, you can go in and you can map out your boundaries ahead of time, and then you can drive straight back and forth through those waterways without having to trim a buffer region around them. And that leads to major sprayer efficiencies, maybe sprayer efficiencies on 50% or better, depending on what type of terrain you're spraying in. So sprayer efficiency is a really understated and really big value of PWM nozzle control systems. So we'll go to the next slide here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the flow rate of our valves. And Not just efficiency that I talked about before, but we have a bigger valve than anyone else in the market. And what that means is you can reach higher field speeds, you can do bigger flow rates, and you can still get all the advantages of a PWM nozzle control system. So a lot of systems on the market, as you go to liquid nitrogen or you go to our applications where that has a really high flow rate, you wind up having to go revert to a conventional system and lose the PWM benefits because it's not capable of putting out the type of flow rates and the type of speeds we need for those applications. But with the PinPoint system, its base is a 2.4 gallon per minute valve. We can really get a tremendous amount of flow out. In a lot of cases, more flow than your machine is actually capable of producing. So our valves on a machine will pretty much produce the amount of flow that that machine can actually achieve. And right here is a quick chart on sort of what the industry standard is and what our valve is capable of. And this industry standard, this 1.5 gallon per minute down here at the bottom of the chart, this is sort of where we started out back in our early AIM command days. And we would spray 1.5 gallon per minute at 40 PSI. And this is the same as almost all the other PWM systems in the market. They're going to be down here at this very similar flow range. Now, you do see some claims that, hey, our valve flows 2 gallons per minute, but you do have to look at the literature and it might say 2 gallons per minute at 60 PSI. Well, that is exactly equivalent to 1.5 gallon per minute at 40 PSI. So again, if you're looking at what flow rate will a valve do, saying 2 gallon per minute at 60 is no different than saying 1.5 gallon per minute at 40. So in other words, those valves are identical. They're on the same line as far as the flow that they can produce. This is the PinPoint III valve up here. It starts out at 40 PSI. It's capable of achieving 2.4 gallons per minute. And if we do that same 60 PSI comparison, we can see that that valve's actually capable of producing about 3 gallons a minute, which is a tremendous amount of flow and is compatible with all of these nitrogen applications we're trying to do. So you're going to get higher field speeds. You're going to get better droplet control because that valve can achieve a higher flow rate. It has a lower pressure drop through it. At the end of the day, that translates into the gauge that you see on, or the pressure that you see on the pressure gauge is the exact pressure that's being supplied to that nozzle. So you know that you're producing the actual droplet size on the droplet chart. So it's high flow, low restriction. It is a really, really big flow rate and a really tremendously performing valve. It's very efficient. It's a very low current draw for the flow rate that you get as well. So we do this 3 gallon per minute at a much lower power consumption than people can even do. Most people can even do half of this flow. So not only can we do a tremendous amount of flow, it's not very taxing electrically on the machine, which means it enhances the performance of the machine as well. So that's just a little bit about the flow of our valves, and it's light years ahead in flow of most other things on the market. A little bit about the valve itself is our valve is designed by us. It is made for harsh agricultural environments. We designed it specifically for that. It has a plunger and solenoid design unique to Capstan. And just a little bit about the quality of these is that we feel like we had sort of the industry benchmark for quality standard in valve. And when we went to build our own, we said at minimum, we have to exceed that quality criteria. And the aerial market taught us a lot about this. So we went on spray planes. We put our standard coils on there. A spray plane is a really, really harsh environment. They spray extremely concentrated active ingredients. They do that at really, really high flow rates because their speed is so high. And they do that also at really high pressures. So this is that airplane is sort of the worst environment imaginable for a coil and a plunger. And our old ones, which had really good life on ground rigs, weren't surviving as long as they should have been on spray planes. So an example of that is our standard plunger was failing in about 50,000 spray acres on a spray plane. Now that may be 100 or 125,000 acres on a ground rig. But on a spray plane, 50,000 acres doesn't get you through the season. So it was a big deal. It was failing prematurely. So when we designed this plunger, it had to last at least a season on a spray plane. And so our plunger design now, we have well over 500,000 acres on a spray plane now. So to talk about that quality change in this plunger, even though it's a small part, it's a small piece of a system and it seems irrelevant, it's a pretty big deal because we upped the life from 50,000 to 500,000 acres on a spray plane. And this is a serviceable part. This is a part that's going to wear out. It's a long-term cost of ownership. So to really eliminate that long-term cost of ownership is a value to our growers. The same difference with the coil. We had longer life expectancy on the spray plane with the coil, but not quite up to our standards. When we came out with this coil right here, we're getting now 10 times the life expectancy of our old one. So really, really quality coil. That's the expensive part in your long-term cost of ownership, and a really, really quality plunger. So we combine these two things together. These are your wear parts. These are your failure parts. These are the most parts that you have on the machine, and they are of the highest quality. It's the best valve and plunger on the market. So we really strive to decrease the long-term cost of ownership for our growers. And I think we've hit that benchmark here, and we're not done. We're constantly testing, constantly trying to improve. But we've got a good stake in the ground on this coil and plunger right now. Just to quickly back into, hey, that's all good. I think that a PWM system is nice, but at the end of the day, it has to make me some money. So we just wanted to put in a very simple ROI analysis here. And we sort of have two systems here. One of them would be, sort of a small boom, a few nozzles, say an 80 or a 90-foot boom. And MSRP may come in around 30 grand for that system. And the other system over here would be a bigger boom, a 15-inch nozzle spacing, 120 foot, 100 nozzles on the machine. So, a difference in MSRP. So that system, on the upper end can be towards $50,000. So we try to do two comparisons, the smaller boom to the bigger boom with more valves. And we came over here and looked at a few categories and says, well, on average throughout the year, the chemical cost that you put through the sprayer is probably going to be anywhere between a low and a high of $30 and $50 per acre. Nozzle control savings. So this would be just what you get from overlap control. And we would say on the low end from section to individual nozzle, you're going to get a 10% savings in product. On the high end, if you're in a lot of really nasty fields, you could get upwards of 15%, maybe even higher than that in some applications. We're going to say sprayer efficiency. We put it down here at the really low end, saying you're probably going to be about 6% more efficient with that sprayer. Again, we could have put a high estimate in here and said, hey, if you got a lot of waterways and you're driving back and forth through them, that efficiency number can go through the roof. But we kept that low on both of them. In our sprayer operating cost, we're just assuming, a couple $100 an hour by the time you, pay for the machine and pay for the operator type deal. So that's, I don't know how close that is in the ballpark. It's probably not far. Your acre sprayed, low end machine, 10,000 acres per year, high end, 20,000 acres per year. And I realize some people may spray 8,000 and some people may spray 30. So this just kind of, gives us 2 points here. So system MSRP, we reviewed that. Now, just looking at chemical savings alone, this is a pretty big number. If we're spraying 10,000 acres at $30 an acre and we get 10% product savings, that's 30 grand. Same math over here on the high side, 20,000 acres at 50 is 150 grand. So again, 1 year ROI, this is a $300,000 a year chemical bill. This is roughly $1 million a year chemical bill. So you're getting a lot of savings from individual nozzle shutoff. We add in some of these machine efficiency savings, low end 6%, high, but if it was 50% over here, this number would be much larger. So total ROI, at the end of the day, we can see that if you're down here, even a base level user, you're getting a 1 year ROI, 1 year payback on that PWM nozzle control system. If you're spraying a lot of acres and a lot of expensive goods, man, you're going to have a massive payback on that PWM system in 1 year. And if you're even a 2 year, 3 year lease type operator, or, if you're a long-term owner where you keep a machine for 10 years, no matter what scenario you're in, this is going to give you a pretty big ROI, a pretty big return on your investment. So investing in PWM technology is not only going to give you a lot of the benefits of chemical efficacy and easier driving because you have a larger speed range. So, operator fatigue, chemical efficacy, a lot of these things that we can't quantify with dollars. If there's any benefit to those at all, these ROIs go through the roof. So these are just the really, really simple to quantify type analysis. You should really have a PWM system on your machine, not just because we sell them anyone's. It's because you get a massive payback from investing in this technology on your machine. So we like to say that we're the future-proof technology headquarters. One of the things that we like to make sure of is that, we never orphan a customer. So no matter if that customer bought the very first PWM nozzle control system that rolled out of our factory, or they bought the latest and greatest technology from us today, we want to make sure that that customer has solid support, that that customer has access to product, that that product can be upgraded to do new performance things, even on old sprayers. And we've got a team of field experts that I think a lot of people would attest to, that are really diligent in making sure that we take care of all those customers for a long time. But not only that, we're an application company. So a lot of precision ag companies are focused on, a lot of farm applications in different areas. We're application people, and we're focused on application, and that application can be through a spray plane. It can be through an orchard sprayer. We have toolbar products. We have planter products. All of those products are application products because we consider ourselves experts in that area. And we're doing things with those products like expanding their capabilities. We're adding in, a lot of people are using green on green camera spraying now. We've made it really easy for these companies to integrate with our systems. We have dozens of those running out in the field. We're hearing some really, really good success stories, and a lot of really valid ROI potential for those green on green systems. So you're not buying a technology today that's obsolete tomorrow. You're buying a technology that we've worked really hard to future proof so that you have a solid investment no matter how many years you keep the sprayer, whether you're an annual trader or you're a long-term owner. And so anyway, that's going to conclude our session. And so just the quick conclusion is why PinPoint 3? We've got the biggest valves, consistent droplet size, your PWM benefits. Our valve and plunger design is far above and beyond anything in the market. There's a clear ROI when you invest in PWM systems, and we've got an open platform, and that platform allows a lot of custom integrations from a lot of people in the market. So I'll say, whether you're spraying 5,000 or 50,000 acres, we've got the flexibility, return, that you need for your farm. So that concludes what we had prepared for Y PinPoint 3. If there were any questions that someone wanted to add, I know there's a chat or a Q&A window. If you wanted to pop those in, I'd be happy to take any specific questions. Otherwise, I'll pointing. Thank you for attending, customers or dealers. Thank you for working with us. We appreciate your business very, very much. All right. I think we're going to be short on the Q&A, so that will conclude our meeting for the day. Thank you so much.